economic development and security for women and girls. And I'm joined by Sudi Faroknia from Union Bank and Emily Murase, Executive Director of the Department on the Status of Women in San Francisco. Welcome. Well, this afternoon, the conversations have focused on violence against women and the invisibility of women and really economic development, because that's really the driving force of making sure that we are providing not only resources, but a lot of assistance in connecting the dots to make sure that, women have all the tools that they need to succeed. I'm Elmi Bermejo, and I'm the regional representative for the Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez. At the Department of Labor, our mission is to look after the welfare of America's wage earners. And that means making sure that people earn a fair wage, that they are safe at their place. We're also a federal agency that has the Women's Bureau that looks after the America's working women. We look at paid leave. We've worked very closely with the White House on working family summits to talk about raising the minimum wage, paid leave, and other issues, including this year, as I said earlier, apprenticeships and also conflict of interest, because that has a lot to do with economic security when it comes to pension plans. So we have a rule right now that's under scrutiny that would make it there be transparency. For instance, if you are with your financial advisor and that individual is getting paid by someone to sell a particular product, that when that financial advisor is talking to you, they should disclose that so that you know and that you are an informed consumer. Oftentimes, that there's no disclosure for that, and at the end of someone's career, they end up losing sometimes 10% of their pension benefits. So these are the kinds of things that we look at, and we're here to talk about those issues and how we're impacting at the local level. I wanted to start a little bit with a study that I found that was from Harvard did a study, it was in a newspaper a couple of days, that was really looking at talking to some of the Harvard Business School alumni. And some of the findings about income inequality, and what they were saying is that it's going to remain persistent problem despite brighter prospects for the U.S. economy. They also talked about 45% of these individuals said that rising poverty levels could hurt their business. And of course, when it starts hurting corporate America, people start paying attention and looking at income inequality. But the study also mentioned that despite the concern and the fact that the U.S. economy is getting better, that many people don't really know what to do about the problem. Some of these people are executives, and they said, we recognize there's a problem, not sure what to do about it. So over here, we have these expert women who are working on the ground, and we're going to start with Sudi to talk about some of the things that you think working in a financial institution, what are some things that you see that we can start doing that are doable actions to help women have economic security or be on the path to economic security?
Well, coming at sort of the end of the tail of this meeting, there's a lot of things that I intended to say that has already been said. So I'm sorry if I'm going to be sort of reiterating what you've already heard, but I just noted this brochure that is on everybody's table, and what I wanted to talk about was gender diversity, and especially as one of the speakers earlier talked about, having them at the right place, at the decision tables. And, the rhetoric of breaking this glass ceiling, it's, the politically correct thing to say, but actually making it happen, it's a challenge. And I'm sure you've read the statistics, and my colleague here just shared the newspaper today that we have now only 27 companies in the 500 S&P have CEOs that are female. And that just went up by 3 people from last year, and we have more than doubled it in the past 5 years. Now, that just means that we don't have enough people up there. I mean, 27 out of 500 is not much. And to get there, it's usually through those who contribute to the bottom line. It's been jobs that had to do with P&L, where women have different skill sets, and these skill sets is how we negotiate, how we collaborate, how we act. Unfortunately, even some of these women are not looked at as being very feminine, and we don't have to necessarily mimic men to get up there. It's to add value and show the value of having those differences. In the financial institution, for instance, in Union Bank, yesterday, the second female C-level was hired. She's the chief risk officer. Most of these financial institutions where you see women are either chief operating officers because we have organization skills, and we, generally women are very good at multitasking. And then you have them in human resources. Seldom you see them in anything that has to do with actually providing coverage or leading to the bottom line for the companies. One of the things that most women, maybe it's our motherly instincts that, it's built into us, is that we are very, very intuitive about people's nature and with nature of risk. This is, and I found it interesting when you shared it, because the 3 female CEOs that just got added was Walmart, Deloitte, and KPMG. Well, Deloitte and KPMG are major auditing and tax provider companies, and what they do well is risk management. Goes to tell you that that's one of the fields that we can definitely shine, and it's starting for people to recognize that if we, as women, we can really challenge, not necessarily to go into, gender-specific roles, but to show that there are jobs that we can do better than men, and it's okay. And there are jobs that maybe men can do generally better than women, and it's okay. We don't have to be all good at everything. But the point is to make sure that we have that dialogue, and that we, men and women are engaged in the conversations and embrace those differences as being a good thing.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily Murase, Executive Director of the Department on the Status of Women. I also serve as President of the School Board, heeding Anne's call earlier about running for office. So the Department on the Status of Women is a city department, just like the fire department, police department. We have a $6.5 million budget, of which $5.5 million goes right back out into the community to support our 3 domestic violence shelters, legal advocacy, and prevention education. And under the leadership of Patty Chang and Sonia Malara, who you've heard from previously, one of our focuses has been domestic violence. And I want you to know that because of our efforts over 12 years, we were able to eliminate domestic violence for 44 months in San Francisco to 0.
Amazing. Wow. That's really amazing.
But the other part of our work is on Cities for CEDA, and we're so pleased to partner with WIN as co-peer leaders of the Cities for CEDA effort. And just a few acknowledgments. You have some rock stars amid you. Of course, Liz Abzug, but Marilyn Fowler and Julianne Cartwright-Traylor are CEDA Women's Human Rights honorees. And we're having our annual luncheon in October, and I left this on your seat to recognize other women in the community. So I just want to give my hats off to Marilyn and to Julianne for their hard work in this area. And I just wanted to acknowledge Katie Veach in the back. She's a policy fellow at our office. We always welcome talented young people into our office, and so she's really getting a lot out of today. Just want to get a sense in the room. Please stand if you're here representing the nonprofit sector. If you're here from nonprofit sector, if you could please stand. Great. Okay. And what about academia? If you're here representing academia. Okay. How about media? Media. Do we have media folks here? Students. Do we have students? Students in the house? Are there students in the house? Okay. Excellent. And how many businesses do we have in the house? Where's our corporate partners, our businesses? Okay. Very good. So it's really such a diverse area. And one of the areas we do work in is changing workplace culture. And I just wanted to share with you a few statistics about our workplace in the United States today. Women account for 47% of the workforce. 3 out of 4 employed women work full-time. More women than men have more than one paid job. Women have lots of unpaid jobs. 72% of mothers work outside the home. 2/3 of women minimum wage workers are women. And just take a moment to figure out how old you will be in 2058. That's 43 years from now. Just calculate in your head. 43 years from now, how old will you be? I'm turning 50 this year, so I'm going to be 93. So that's when the wage gap is expected to close. Right? At the current rate,
dead.
That's when the wage gap. So I just want to share
We
with you.
can't wait that long.
We can't wait that. So I just want to share with you 2 programs that we do in order to partner with the private sector to promote change in workplace culture, because we can't wait till I'm 93 years old to have pay equity. And the first is a Gender Equality Principles initiative. We have an online survey. You can find out where your organization is in terms of gender equity. It's free. We don't keep the data. It's all confidential. And we will give you resources as well on how to move the needle on gender equity. And then secondly, for those of you, it's Monday, but we are having a recognition program for Healthy Mothers Workplace, where we award bronze, silver, gold medals to companies that provide lactation accommodation, that flexible schedules, that really make policies to welcome women. And last year, actually, even though Twitter has an abysmal record in terms of hiring women and women in the C-suite, they won the gold medal because they told us 93% of the women who leave Twitter on maternity leave come back. They come back because they're so valuable as employees. Twitter bends over backwards to make sure there are flexible schedules and different assignments. And so I'll leave the rest of the time for discussion.
Thank you, Emily. And on Monday, the Department of Labor is also getting one of those awards. And this is a conversation came out of the Working Family Summits, and that the White House said, let's look at our departments and see where we are. Are we walking the talk? And there were studies at the Department of Labor, and so certainly a lot of work to do on that front as well. I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but I want to open it up to anybody that has questions for any 3 of us on the panel. Yes? A comment?
Thank you. I was just mentioning to Ella that I work at Twitter right now, actually, and there is a long way to go. I've been working with an organization within Twitter called Blackbird, which is employees of African descent, and everybody who is an ally, and we've been working on increasing diversity and focusing on diversity issues. And Twitter actually recently, a couple of weeks ago, publicly announced company-wide diversity goals. We're not doing well, but the fact that Twitter, along with I think it was one more company that came out, we have these goals as a company, I think that's important.
In San Diego, we have the Family Justice Center, and this has been model program that's gone across the country. There are now 90 family justice centers throughout the country, and I don't know how many throughout the world. But it's an attempt to deal with domestic violence. It's a one-stop place for women to come and be helped. Another program that we're looking at in San Diego is not building more shelters for women and families, but to build anger management shelters for men. Why are we pulling mothers and their children out of their homes and putting them in shelters? So we're trying to just bring the guy out, put him in a safe place. And so I hope we can bring that throughout the country.
Hi, I have a question about women on corporate boards, because we're talking about women's leadership. We're talking about Twitter, for example, but there's other media and social media giants who have not come on board in having women on their board. And as we're speaking about policy and government and wanting 50% of our boards in the public sector representing women, we should also be demanding the same for our corporations. And I'm really disappointed that this never comes up and that we don't discuss this more. And I'm just wondering if you have something to say on this topic.
This is just my personal observation, but when you run for office, you choose to run and people vote for you, and there's a community at large. In a corporate board, when you run for office, it seems to me that you already have to know all the voters in that corporation. And if we as women don't know those players and what the corporate culture is, it's really hard. So I think we just need to not just look for women who can support us, but who are those men and women already on those boards, and they happen to be mainly men, and they need to also be encouraged to start recruiting and mentoring and reaching out. So I see it as a two-step process, so two-way.
Yeah, I agree. The issue is the networking. Women just don't network as much. We network to, have quilting class, get-togethers or book clubs, but we don't necessarily network for supporting each other and introducing other professionals that we know for those type of positions. And the boards are very important because the directors are the ones who actually hire the C-level employees. And if we don't have enough people in the boards and we don't keep the boards accountable for the decisions that they are making, this is what we see is right now that we are having such a struggle having enough people at the decisioning tables.
I think there is some accountability issues. For example, I heard that Open Table had no women on the board. Who makes reservations at Open Table? It's women. And so I believe there was a Twitter campaign or something to really raise that issue in the public. But I just want to share one secret tactic. One secret tactic, women are not very good at tooting our own horn, but we're really good at tooting our friends' horns. So the secret tactic, and men have to pretend they're not listening, is that if you're in a room and say, for example, I know Elmi, and she's giving a presentation, I turn to whoever I'm sitting with who doesn't know Elmi and I say, that was a fantastic presentation. Elmi deserves a promotion.
I like
right?
that.
Because it plays on women's ability to really uplift our neighbor, not necessarily ourselves.
Julianne?
Yes, I agree with what we're saying about networking and everything. And this is one instance where we have an instance to learn from our colleagues abroad. I was based at a research institute in Oslo, Norway for 5 years. And stuff, and so got to know public policy there, private policy there. And countries like Norway and some of the other Scandinavian countries actually have quotas they have quotas for membership on their boards, public corporations and what have you and stuff, and even getting to the private sector. And I know here in the U.S. we don't like to use the word quotas or what have you and stuff, but we do have something to learn in terms of goals, and to just keep that in mind, what we can as members of civil society do in relationship to our government and our public corporations at least. And this is just something I wanted to interject in the conversation, that we can learn from our partners abroad.